Hey, so I kind of wanted to give a rundown on how I want to explain myself on some of my lines that I will do. Um, I kind of chose one already, um, so let's kind of get to it. So in one it says, "I do believe in a higher power, but I don't think we'll find it in literature." So for me, I believe that yes, there are many verses, many ways to follow in a way and how you look at, I don't know, religion. There's, like I said, there's thousands, maybe 3,000 if I can read correctly, but I might be wrong, of religions available out towards us. So for me, because there's so many ways of how you could look and perceive of a higher power, a lot of it's going to be changed based off how you wish to look at it. So for me, I wanted to say that in a way because, in the past, a lot of the ways that, information was distributed was through books. How you distributed it was you written down on parchments and papers that were quite expensive until the printing press was available to just about everyone. But it was still expensive even when you had the printing press. But you just had more available and you could print more volumes based off the amount of ink that you did have. Um, so for me, I kind of I kind of always felt like, a lot of ways books could be manipulated. One way that I could see it is if you're like native, there's over around 300, a little bit over 300 tribes available in North America, and that's just in North America. So because of that, me being Navajo and Cheyenne, it being taken all the way to, Olean, New York, where, or even Salamanca, there's a lot of Seneca Native Americans. So their tribe could be totally different of how our tribe works based off, tons of factors. So for me, I can listen to some languages and you can pick in pieces and snippets the same way the people I work with that are Tongan and Samoan, people from Samoa and Tonga, you know what I mean, the way that they are able to, listen to others, they can take snippets and understand the language. But because they're still much different from each other, they're able to only take small snippets and understand of how it's versed and how they're acknowledged. So I'll even give you another way talked off of how Native Americans are speaking. So for Native Americans during back in 1940s in the mid to late, during World War II, there was the Wind Talkers. And what they went off of is they went off their own language to speak in order, on how to communicate and go for the war. So for me, how natives spoke of tanks and airplanes, it was talked off and based off of turtles and birds, like, so basically a specific plane was talked about a specific bird, and so on for tanks would be noticed as turtles. So you taking off of that, you're able to create your own stigma of your own mind of how it can be basically processed through your brain of what it would look like. Um, Another way that I can say that literature could be, changed is that, like I said, parchment and paper was really expensive. So people of power back in that time could control on how the history was taken. Not to mention that if you were someone that was built off of, warring and you were doing that, sometimes books were burned. I remember, I believe I read a way while back, Alexander the Great, was conquering many types of land and calling it Alexandria. And there was a specific library that had, thousands or, hundreds of years worth of information that would have been much better for us if it did stay, but it was burned down. And we don't know all that information and bookings that you know, could have been to our own knowledge from that. So if we take it from that aspect, then a lot of ways, our information could be manipulated. Now, let's take it back from right now, propaganda wise. Information that is taken from the propaganda is easily, could be easily manipulated. So, Like one person can say yada yada this, yada yada that. Think about it when paper was much more expensive. It was easily controlled, and how information was taken out was easily more distributed than it is before now. I mean, think about it, your own radios. When the radio first came out, people in the 1930s, that was a way of publicizing and creating propaganda. And people would sit by the radio, listen to like boxing matches, information on the wars, things of that nature. They were easily propagandized from that because it was a way to reach across many people. So that can really change too. Now, I'm not saying that there's a lot of like stipulations, but because there's a lot of question in mind of how that can be looked upon, you don't really know what information is taken off of or how it could be taken from. So for me, I've always been the type of person to be a little skeptical on based off what I take in as information. Now, I'm not saying that information could be incorrect, but because, information is looked upon that way, it can be taken in a negative manner. And, it can't be negative in not saying that it's not untrue, but because things can be taken a little bit less truth, you're not given the full piece of the pie in order for you to understand what's going on. So for me, I take it in a very serious tone of how I look and take information in, because there's a lot of negativity that can go around, and how you look at the information, it could hurt you even though it should not pertain to you. Because if you're getting hurt by something, then you really need to step back and move away from the media, or at least control what you're given. A lot of ways that can be taken is based off your own precautions and your understanding of yourself. And for me, like, I used to get offended a lot for no reason, and that was based off my troubles. I mean, I could say it was the drugs, but no, it was more of my way of how I looked upon myself. So for me, I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to go to that same route again, because I already know what happens there. So it kind of sucks for myself own. So that's another way. Second, even information could be manipulated right now. I think because information goes out so quickly, information can be taken off, or it can be completely altered. Like, I remember for me, when I was 12 years old, when I was stabbed, I remember when information was going out just from the papers, and I was talking to them specifically, and the information would sometimes be wrong. Like, I would be 12 years old, I'd be 13 years old, the court rulings would be different, and that was just off of me, just a simple, me getting stabbed. So I saw that at a very young age of how information can be mistaken and misrepresented. And remember, I wasn't that popular. I just, it was just on the news. They were just surprised I lived that, So for me, I took into that own considerment that, like, wow, that's where it comes from. That's where it goes off of. That's how it's taken. So that's a hard thing to process. But as soon as you're in a sort of, kind of shine to where you can see just a little bit of that information and see how it's coming off, it's kind of hard, Now, I'm not mentioning, like, a lot of people say, like, they're going for the information. Even for me, I could be misrepresented off of my own information. And I think that's why a lot of people, I believe that you should be trying to find your own little path of why you're looking for this information, why you're doing the things you do. And other than just jumping on how other people want it to be done, like, some people just want shit done now because, they want their money, they want to get out, and I understand. But for me, like, I've never did what I do for the sake of money. I do it for the fake because I enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I talk about. Like, that's how I want to be, and that's what I'm interested in. And how whatever person you are, that's how I should, I take everything as that way. I don't want to have somebody else tell me of what I should be or what I should be looking for. Instead, I want to be looking for myself and understand why I believe in what I do. And that's a hard thing. It really is, because especially in this world where you're looking through social media, and not for me, like I'm scrolling through Facebook and I'm looking, like every single thing that I'm given and information is based off what you choose and what you like, and how you like it and what it is, and just simple words that you could explain could easily go in an ad, you know what I mean, given to you. And because of that, your mind can easily get manipulated based off that. You have to understand that. To you it may sound like a little thing, but those little things accumulate. It's the same thing I talk about compound interest. They accumulate to the point where it becomes a situation, where it became one. Like a lot of people say, like, we're going through dire times. Of course we are. But the fact is it came because it kept stacking. It kept, creating more problems at once, other than the fact that it was just one problem that we could have fixed much early on. It's the factor of several problems coming at once, and it compounds over and over and over until you're left in a real shithole. So for me, I want to not, I don't want to say anything I don't really understand, because like I said, I really don't understand a lot of things. And because I don't understand a lot of things and I don't know a lot of things, I'm very patient in how I say things and how I do things. And because of that, I don't really want to have somebody read what I say and that's stupid, that's dumb. Of course maybe that's from your opinion, but I think because you have that, and we have the ability to choose on how we change and react and how we look at what things are, other than how they are, and then look deeper past that, you know what I mean, look past the eyes and look into the head. I think it becomes a much more healthy environment for all of us, because we're no longer just looking on the outside of how, like, am I wearing a nice t-shirt? Is my face pretty enough? Is these glasses stylish? Like, these little things, they shouldn't matter, but because they can probably compound in your mind, they could matter. And that's the thing. Those little things add up. But for me, I want to stick true to what I believe in and what I look at. And because there's a lot of other people, I believe that it's important to me. And it shouldn't be other people, you know what I mean? You shouldn't always just do it for others. You got to have a certain guideline to where you say, I care about myself enough to where I want to do this. I care about myself because I understand that, I don't like how I view things. So for me, I kind of want to see the idea of what it looks like other than how it has to be. And because of that, I don't try to force anything on people. I just try to be my best self, or just try to be myself more so. And I sometimes I twist shit up and I make my own stories, and I did that, and I didn't even know, like, some people took that to such a hard offense. But that's my apology. But for me, I do it because I enjoy what I do. And because of that, I find a higher self of well-being, at least, like a higher idea of what I look to me. And I think that's what I'm trying to look for. When I do the blogs, I don't try to look at who looks at it. I look at, will this impact someone in a better way? Could it impact in a better way? Other than me just saying, whatever, I'm just going to throw this out and hopefully I get enough likes. Like, that's not how I want to look at myself, because, in the end, I got to look myself in the mirror. I got to do that shit, and I got to say, wow, So even for me, like, I've made mistakes, but because I make these mistakes, and then I understand from the mistakes, and then I try to make it better, and then I move on, and then I'm able to go to the next sector, the next idea of how I look at things, other than just saying, that's just how shit is, I might as well give up. No. Life, it's always a pick up and go. But for me, I'm a little bit lazier than others. I'm not gonna, work my butt off. I'm not gonna do this grind at what people are because they need money. And for me, I understand. Like, I get it. Like, some people are really interested in that. They want those sort of things. And absolutely, if that's something that makes you happy, if you really think that's gonna make you much happier and you're gonna be in a happier place, do so. But for me, that's not the idea of what I want to look at myself at. I want to find out, where am I going, and why am I doing the things that I do, and why are they so important to me. other than the fact that I just like it, even though that should be a good enough reason. I want to understand myself a little bit more, the deeper parts of myself. And because of that, I try a little bit harder on what I do. Um, you know, that's a hard thing to do for a lot of people, I think. And the more I look at my family members and people I care about and watch, I take a lot of information in. So I think that's a hard thing sometimes I have to watch. And I do my best to be as kind to people as I can, because you never really know what someone goes through, and that hits on a whole different amount of levels the more you become more empathetic, and or at least sympathetic of their ways of how they became the way they are. And that's what is important to me in the long run, is not just understanding myself, but understanding other people and why they do the things that they do. Other than that, there's a little bit of a rundown of just one line. So, you know what I mean? You can take a lot of other lines, but that's kind of how I dissect just one line of itself.